behind me here is the Colton Garden Research Gardens. And so I've been tasked with taking about 20 of these beds and automating the water on those. And so the neat thing that I'm doing here is drip tape. Drip tape is super efficient, it works under super low volume, and it's easy to do. So I want to show you how easy this can be for your garden applications. So let's take a look at the components. Okay, here is the bed, all prepped. It's about a 20 by 20 bed. So what I've done up to this point is I've put in a 1/2 inch polyline. I actually buried this here where people might walk, and there's many more beds, as you can see, stretching out this way. I've already put in the drip tape in those beds. This 1/2 inch polyline runs all the way down. And this polyline is just what you would get for a regular drip system. It stubs out along this end here, and at the very end, in a cold climate, we use a flushing end cap. And so it's got a little plunger here on the end. When the pressure decreases in this line, it exudes all the rest of the water out of this automatically. And so this line won't freeze. These hard plastic fittings won't freeze in this cold climate. I recommend that for most of northern Arizona. And so what we have here is this research bed is all prepped up and ready to be planted. If researchers are putting in their native crops or garden crops, whatever it is, or in your case, flowers, vegetables, ornamentals, it's up to you. I'm going to show you why drip tape is super easy, super efficient. Watering these beds by hand would take hours and hours of time. Short of the monsoon time of the year, May, June, some parts of July, early fall, and our climate can be very, very dry. So we want to be prepared for that with automation. Hand watering can be super efficient, but not when you're a researcher or a busy gardener or a weekend warrior gardener. And so what I'm doing is I'm setting this up on automation so that they can step away, this comes on, then if it is a time of moderate rainfall, they can shut this system off to not be wasting water. And so in this area, I'm going to line out drip tapes. This is the tape material. I've already connected one, and it's super cheap. And every once in a while, there is a preset hole. So this one is on 12-inch centers here. They make different tapes, and this tape works under 100 feet of this tape puts down 0.45 gallons per minute. So 1/2 gallon per minute per 100 feet. So for me, doing multiple beds, even at 5 gallons flow through this polyline, I can run 1,000 feet off of this. Quickly doing the math there, if that's correct. And so this works very efficiently, but it drips for a very long period of time to get the correct wetting pattern. I have a nice big roll that's was originally 4,000 feet of drip tape, and I've just set it up on a wheelbarrow so I can spool out the amount that I need. And then I simply use a few components to put this in, short of the stubbing out the poly line. Where I come to the end of this bed, I go ahead and cut that line. Then I use a end sleeve piece. The small end slips over this, and then it folds over, and then the big end sticks through there. I'll show you how that looks. Okay, I want this to be the end, so I'm going a little further. I'm going to fold this over. I'm going to cut away from myself. This is flat now, but when pressure and water comes to it, it puffs up. And so I take the small end, push it through. This is also what we use at the agribusiness campus. So this is good for larger size gardens, almost like small farms use it exclusively. You fold this over, push it down through, pull it tight, and then I take a stake, and then I put the stake behind this, and then I stake it down into the ground to make a nice straight line for my drip tape. Okay, and there is the finished end of the line, nice and straight. This also makes for nice planting lines, and so if you were doing a garden setting, you could seed in conjunction with this. I'm going to put these about 3 feet apart, and these are going to run for multiple hours. So the wetting pattern will be this 2-foot continuous circle, and so you'll have overlap between the lines. I'm going to finish these and then I'll show you the other component. Okay, I'm starting a new line. I'm going to grab my tape, walk it out. In this case, they've done some perimeter protection to keep animals out. So what I've been doing here is feeding through this chicken wire, pulling that through, and then the next component that connects is this thing here. This is a kind of like a drip lock. So this end is just like a drip piece. You poke a hole, you push this in, that's attached. Then this, it's a nice sleeve. You pop that sleeve open, make it rigid as possible, and then this has a twist component on it. So you're just opening it all the way, feeding this through till it's seated, and then tightening this back down. The neat thing with this component is it tightens down and then this won't come off. This, when it's connected to our supply line, has an on-off. So if they were using this bed or not using this bed, or the plants got mature and they didn't need water, you have the ability to control each one of these lines. That's great for our garden setting. So poke, punch it in. I'll show you that. Okay, this is the punching in process, and so I already made my measurements. I know this is about 3 feet away from the other one, and I've lost my tool, my drip tool for poking, and so in this case this has a really nice big receiver. This is to let enough flow in to fill this line. So I've used a nail, I lost that. I'm using a tip of a ballpoint pen, and I'm punching that in, and I'm doing it on the side that's facing outwards. I'm making a small hole, just holding it rigid to make sure it doesn't push through. And then I'm taking this, and this is a forced push through. Got to keep it rigid, and it seats down in there. Okay, and now this piece, you can tell it's connected. I'm going to stretch this out. And then I'm going, in this case, I'm actually seating this through the chicken wire so it's attached there. Run it down to the other end, cut it, stake it over, come back and putting, I've done 2, I'm going to put 3 more in this bed, and then I'll show you the finished product and I'll turn it. So this area behind me, this research area, was originally set up for automated water. It had huge sprinkler heads that sprayed over the whole thing. So there's a nice infrastructure here that I just had to tie into. Drip tape specifically, because it's sold in bulk and sold in volume, typically if you're not running 1,000 feet of it, you're probably going to stick with just regular drip, and I'll show you some inline drip emitters that you can use in a smaller garden situation. It's just about buying in bulk. And so this drip tape I bought at Pro Water Irrigation in Prescott, but it's available from any of your irrigation stores, or you can order it online as well. It's just sold in rolls of 1,000+ feet. So in this case, I attached to an existing sprinkler head. And so I just took the flow of the line leading to it. I knew I had to run 1,000 feet of this product, and I just did the math. I told you this tape says 0.45 gallons per minute per 100 feet. So I just did the math on that. The difference that you have to do is this works under very low pressure. A typical home has 40 psi, give or take. A typical irrigation system may have anywhere from 30, and I've seen as much as 100 pounds per square inch. Drip tape works under low pressure. And so what I did here was I found where there was a sprinkler head. I unthreaded the sprinkler head off of the riser, and I plumbed in this pressure regulator, and this is just regular drip. I put a pressure regulator in there that regulates it to 25 pounds per square inch. And so the water leading up to this might be 30 or 40 pounds per square inch. This regulates it, and any drip system requires a pressure regulator. And then I came straight up and I teed, and then I went in 2 directions with this drip. I actually buried it here, and then it becomes exposed there where I'm going to connect in with more drip tapes. And then it goes this way here, and then it pops up near each bed, and you can see the components that I put in, and you can see this bed is completely being watered by these two tapes. If I run this for hours, the wetting pattern will equally cover this whole bed. And in this case, this whole thing is seeded out with native plants for research. And so they'll run this for an extensive period of time, but infrequently because it is native plants. So here's all the beds, and I'll go down here to the end and show you, like, for instance, the diameter of this bed dictated 2 tapes. This bed started to get a little larger, so I did 3 tapes. Working our way down, and this is all coming off of one retrofitted sprinkler head, so very low volume. Here's our completed bed. This took me from the time of filming to finishing maybe 15 minutes to line this out, and as you see, it's starting to form its pattern, and it's got a nice uniform drip coming out. Each hole is dripping equally. Nice straight line on all of these. And so if I came back and looked at this in about an hour, you're already starting to see the wetting pattern working its way out. And so this bed will be adequately covered. Now, if you were just growing a crop like pumpkins or corn or tomatoes, you could plant and use the drips as guides, and you could run it for a shorter period of time because you can keep water off the middle where you don't have crops planted. And so that's another advantage of drip. Okay, there you go. The homeowner can just use in this case there was a frost-free bib. We put a splitter on there, one going to the hose, one going to the battery-powered timer. If I turn this to auto and I hit water now and hit OK, you'll hear it start to click. Hear it? That was the click. Water is now flowing through, and so this is a good setup for you can, if you have a spigot coming off the back of your house and you're just doing one garden line or one landscaping line, you can use a battery powered timer. I had it on off because it had been raining, and in this case this follows a hose. The hose connects into a drip line, and then again we have a conversion with a pressure regulator to poly. And then from the poly, you'll see these small 1/4 inch lines. I'll show you in this bed. This is a little bit easier to see. So maybe for the smaller garden, if you're not doing enough to do drip tape, you can use this 1/4 inch line. It's connected in the same way to a poly line. And then I just made loops of this. It's punched in with a 1/4 inch connector. The line runs the length, and then it connects back in to the 1/2 inch line. And you get this nice uniform drip coming out of here. And so when you look at these beds, you saw I just clicked it on, and it's pretty moist here. You can see nice straight lines with drip coming out at a very uniform preset amount, and this would be better for the small garden situation. I didn't want to confuse drip tape with drip system compared to soaker hoses, soaker tubing. There was a product that was fairly popular, local hardware stores and such in the last 20 years. And I want to give my disclaimer about it. The idea is great, the theory is great. It even uses old recycled tire material, so it's a repurposed product. The issue with this stuff is, and this is how they were watering this probably worked really good for one season, and then it starts to seize up. We have very hard water in our area, and so all the mineral components, all the elemental hard water properties inside of this are trying to ooze out through tiny little pores. And if I was to plug this in and turn it on, it would just resist giving out water. And so what happens over time is people who put this in do so at the sake of knowing that it's only going to last a very short period of time. And then they end up poking into this to get themselves water flow again, and that's an unregulated, once you poke in, it's an unregulated flow. And so I really am a proponent for the drip tape or the laser impregnated drip, whether it's in 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch. And I've shown in many of my irrigation videos using that. It's because I'm a fan of that as opposed to weeping hoses.